divisional round recap. We are so excited to get started. Sorry for missing last week, but I'm sure Adam did a great job. I just had a few interviews last week. I was operating under the alias Robert Saleh. So I'm going to be coaching the New York Jets finally. Really looking to turn around the franchise. Cannot wait to get started. We'll talk about my decisions later. Yoni, how's it going?
It's going really well. It's really interesting watching these divisional games. My father makes such an interesting point watching these games. You know, as a Patriots fan, it was such a tough season to watch, but you have this nice feeling. You won your last game of the season. You can watch high-level football at a pretty low stress rate. That being said, we only picked 4 games on the show last week, and I only went 2-2, which is a pretty piss-poor percentage for the so-called expert. I did pick the Ravens and the Saints to win last week. They both came up short. But other than that, pretty groovy. Doing pretty groovy.
Pretty groovy. We can get into our opening statements. I'll talk about this New York Jets hire. I'm very excited about Robert Saleh. They said they wanted to get a CEO type of head coach. They really got the guy in the building. I'm just hearing all over the league that everyone was looking at Robert Saleh for other head coaching positions. It's really nice that the Jets got to pick their first choice. This is the first time in a few hiring roundabouts that the Jets got to pick first. Is it defensive? Yes. I think it's good to go back to the roots of the Jets defense. We have one like that in the past. And I'm glad the Adam Gase experiment is over. Yoni?
Yeah, just a little tidbit off of what you said. I also think it's a good hire. Robert Saleh was, being interviewed, and he was predicted to take head coaching positions last year and even the year before. Happy for him, a guy like that was ready to pull a trigger. It's a tough division, the AFC East. It's not just the one-horse show with the New England Patriots. It's the Patriots are going to rebound, but you also have the Dolphins, which were a pretty darn good team to miss the playoffs, and, of course, the Buffalo Bills, who are in the AFC Championship game. I'm going to start off tonight by talking about something in the news, not necessarily about head coaching hires, but it's this time of year. You can't not talk about it. I want to talk about Desean Watson. The first thing I want to say and just get off my chest, I feel for you. I really do. Bill O'Brien made some tough decisions, getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins, getting in a guy like David Johnson. They're going through a lot of turnover. They gave up an arm and a leg to get Laramie Tunsil, which Laramie Tunsil's a good player. I think he's a top-tier tackle, but that pick the Dolphins have this year is now a top 5 pick. That's going to hurt Houston. And so if you're Desean Watson, you can be upset. However, there's a lot in the media right now with he wants to be consulted on the general manager hire. He didn't really approve with Nick Caserio coming in and being the guy. He wants to have a bigger voice with the head coaching hire. And again, I feel for you. I get it with the decisions the Houston Texans have made over the last year. I get that you want to have a say, but sorry, you're the quarterback of the team. That's not your call. If you want to have a say, a real say in hiring a GM, then own a team and hire a GM. Or if you want to be the say this guy's going to be the head coach, I think he should be the guy, then retire, become a GM, and then you can make those decisions. You should consult him. He is the franchise. He should be consulted with whoever's going to be calling those offensive plays, but he's not the decision maker. It's not him. Desean Watson does not get to make the call on who's the GM and who's the head coach. Other people are there. Other execs are in place to make those decisions. So I feel for you, but not your call, Desean.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say this. While I completely agree with your take, Yoni, I am so excited that he is pissed off because there are rumors of him going to the Jets. Honestly, I would love that move. There are talks of the Jets giving up 3 first-round picks over the next 3 years in order to shake away Desean Watson from his contract. People are in Jets YouTube, as I like to reference a lot, are pretty against the move, saying that we could get a Zach Wilson in here. We could get a Justin Fields in here and restart. But in my opinion, what you're hoping these first-round picks turn into is a guy like Desean Watson. That is the best you can get. So I think if the Jets can do it and are in the field to do it, they should do it. With that, we got Matan on the fan line. He's been in since the very beginning. Cameron, our host, is saying Matan is on the fan line tonight. Baby, let's get it started, Matan.
I'm already taking a lot of flack in the comments for my Watson take, so I hope Matan addresses that first. But Matan, welcome to the show.
I will address it. Not first, though, because first I want to address Paul. It's great to see you where you belong.
Nice to meet you,
I missed you last week. We needed you. That's all I'm going to say. Yoni did a great job doing as much as he could, but the other host, there was a lot to be desired.
Not the hot takes weren't doing it for you?
Absolutely. Now, Paul, to continue off of that, I care about you. So I need you to repeat after me. We aren't getting Desean Watson. We aren't getting it's just not going to happen because I think Desean Watson wants to go to a situation that's better. And I'm not so sure that yours is.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with that. There is a no trade clause in Desean Watson's contract, which makes it a lot more difficult. And I could definitely see him saying it's either like the 49ers or nothing. That's been another rumor. But the thing is, they might just tell him no to anyone but the Jets because the Jets are the only one who have a lot of the cap room as well as the draft picks to offer the Texans. So it could become a stalemate at some point. I agree. It's very unlikely, but Vegas right now has the Jets favored, and I'll take that.
I mean, take it when you can. I also will say Robert Saleh was an amazing hire. I think it's like the best person you can get. He's a culture center. It's what you needed. So Yoni, boomer take. I agree with Nav. I agree that, you shouldn't consult with him. But the reports coming out of the Texans camp is that they told him he would be consulted. And he said, thank you. And then he wasn't consulted.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. And I see how he would be frustrated. And I just think the expectations need to be set a little bit different, that he would be given a little more access than usual. And Paul and I talked about this a little pre-production. I think my personal perspective on the issue comes from being a Patriots fan for so long that it's Belichick's way or the highway, and that's it. And Brady and Belichick fought over a lot of things for years on personnel stuff and issue stuff, but at the end it was Belichick's way or the highway. And the Texans are trying to do it a little more collaboratively, and I get that. But if you're just taking a step back and looking from the outside in, coaches coach, players play, managers manage. And that's how it is. And there's a hierarchy of who hires who and who signs whose paycheck. And that's just kind of where I'm coming from. If the Texans told Desean Watson one thing and then they're doing something else, I could see why that would make him upset. I'm not saying Desean Watson's a baby. That's not what I'm saying. I just saying we need to shift the narrative on how we're looking at this whole situation.
I agree. But something that, I was reminded of today was when you look at the Texans' history, it is so rough. And Desean Watson is a type of player that could be injury prone with the style that he plays. You don't know how many years you're going to get out of him. He's an amazing player. So if I'm Desean Watson, I'm looking at the history of that organization. I'm looking at the decisions they've made. And I'm saying, if I'm going to be here, I need to know that my prime isn't going to be wasted by an organization with a history of failure, because that's what it is. They are a bad organization. They have a history of being a bad organization. And I don't think it's such a bad thing to have your quarterback consulted, because he is the future of the organization.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't work. For example, the Adam Gase hire, Sam Darnold had the option to choose his head coach between Adam Gase and
not the same. not the same. Different quarterbacks.
I will just say that sometimes giving a player too much power in a situation like that can end up poorly. They're not hired to hire the coach; they're hired to play the game.
And I think what's making the Texans look particularly bad and making this really blow up is that Desean Watson is kind of sitting in the middle of the camp. It's okay, people are on his side, people sympathize, but he's going to suck it up and he's going to play, or cut your losses and ask for a trade. But him kind of complaining, rightfully so, but complaining and then just being yeah, fine, I'll stick around and play anyway. That doesn't leave a good taste in anyone's mouth, and that's the biggest issue. He likes Houston and he wants to be there, but at the same time, as you said, if this isn't a place where he wants to waste his career, waste his prime, then the season's not even officially over yet. We have a long time till free agency in the draft for teams to get their shit together. If you want to ask for a trade, then ask for a trade, right? It's hard to say those words and to do that and to put yourself out there and to put the Texans in that position. But if that's really what you believe is best for you, then go ahead and do it, because this middle ground is really what's making things fester.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I have a question for you guys. I got a bold take, and then I've got the thing everybody's waiting for.
Of course.
So, to me, what struck me at a teams that got eliminated is 2 weeks ago we watched Jared Goff play second fiddle to a nobody essentially, and I'm the thumb injury obviously had a part in that, but I think there's also something else happening there where he's not Sean McVay's guy anymore. I don't think he is. I'm not so sure that McVay trusts him. The fact that he was able to play kind of tells me, like the fact that he got in and that he dressed and all that stuff kind of tells me McVay wasn't happy with his play. I'm kind of wondering, if you're the Rams, is Goff your future? Because I know McVay would be the guy I'd be building around. And if McVay doesn't think Goff is the future, he's got a big deal. You got to figure something out.
Well, shit, they signed him to a really big deal, so you're kind of stuck with him for a while. I actually came on in my opening statement a couple weeks ago, and I said, big ups to Jared Goff. He got his tough guy card. 12 days after the surgery, he dressed. Yeah, there's an inconsistency issue, and I also think his bad play is also further emphasized by the fact, like, wow, Cam Akers is like actually really good. Maybe we can just lean on him, and now not only is Jared Goff not playing well, but we could actually just run the ball 30 times a game and win. So I think he's better, right? If your question is it Jared Goff or the field? Right now, I have to go with Jared Goff. I don't think there's anyone better in free agency for a better price or where the Rams pick going forward. That's going to be better than Jared Goff. You gotta roll the dice. You gotta stick. Not even roll the dice. You gotta stick with Jared Goff right now.
Yeah, and I mean it almost is like a lesser version of the Carson Wentz situation. I mean, he has a significant contract, not as big as Carson Wentz, and I think he's guaranteed for the next 4 years. So, I got to agree with Yoni. I think you got to pick Jared Goff with what you have because you signed him, and that's what you got to move forward with. It sucks for Sean McVay as well. But I do think Sean McVay believes in Jared Goff, or he would have said something earlier about the contract. I don't know. I think Sean McVay still believes in Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he dressed says that they were fine with him playing. But if they're fine with him playing, then he's not as injured as – definitely tough guy. You don't come back 12 days from surgery and they're not tough.
100%.
You remember the Jay Cutler situation a few years back where he hurt his thumb in a playoff game and he didn't play, or that he could have played or something like that, and he came in. Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I just think he said, I'm 60% coach, you shouldn't play me at a certain point. And they were like, okay, well, you're better than 60% you is better than our third string quarterback. So, hey, we'll take it. I guess we're fine with Jared Goff.
And I think you guys are going to touch on this later, but there is no way in hell Patrick Mahomes should be allowed to play this week.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are going to get to that. I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah.
Insane. Okay, so here's my predictions that actually come true, brought to you by my new favorite snack, peanut butter and apple. Delicious.
Not even
okay.
Man, it's just two foods.
Yeah, it's my new favorite snack. Okay, so I've got predictions for the current vacancies. I may have forgotten one or two, and who they will be filled by. Now, these are takes that come true rather than Adam Offit's that he just throws out, nobody remembers because they're bad and they never come true. Now, for the Los Angeles Chargers, Brendan Staley, is that his name? Brandon Staley?
Brandon Staley, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to get him, and I think other than Robert Saleh, maybe, I think he's the best option available. I've got the Eagles getting Joe Brady. I'm not totally sure that they're even going to be able to get him, but I think that's who I would go if I'm the Eagles. I need somebody creative. I want to build off somebody new. I think Doug Peterson's going to get an OC job. I think he deserves it, especially for a new coach, especially maybe the Jets would be a really good place for Peterson to go. The Lions, I think, are going to get Dan Campbell. I don't think anybody really wants that job. Matthew Stafford's leaving. And then the Texans, I have getting Marvin Lewis. It's a bad organization. They're going to get a bad option. Although I actually think he's an underrated coach. He did a pretty good job in Cincinnati for a while. So all those will come true, unlike Adam Offit's takes. Love to know what you guys thought.
Well, I'll tell you one that did come true. I believe the Los Angeles Chargers have already hired Brandon Staley. So
Really?
yeah, I think that happened yesterday, late at night. Yeah.
I mean,
and Cam and our producer Cam emailed us an ESPN link before the show that the Lions are nearing a deal with Dan Campbell.
I'm undefeated. I've been busy the last couple of days.
Before your mortal lock, I just want to say my one pushback is Joe Brady. I want to know what you've seen him do at this level that can convince you that he can be a head coach. Great. He was the offensive coordinator for an absolutely stacked LSU team that won the Super Bowl and then came in with Carolina and tough division, but came in last. So what have you seen from him that makes you believe he can be an NFL head coach?
Okay, so the first 6 games, first of all, I think they completely overperformed. I think he was working with very little with Christian McCaffrey out. And I think building around a running back, I've said this before, doesn't lend itself to success. I think he did a good job with what he had there, and I didn't think he had a whole lot. I think you saw Robbie Anderson overperform, which I think was largely due to him. I think you saw Teddy Bridgewater play to his full potential. I think that's due to him. I think if you're the Eagles, you need somebody who can get creative. That's an offensive mind, because he is an offensive mind. Whether, he has a track record of success isn't really so important. And to me, honestly, there is proof that just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean you're a good head coach. But if you're a young mind that can, relate to the players, which he did at LSU, I have no reason to believe he's not doing that in Carolina, you're going to be much better off like Sean McVay. Cliff Kingsbury was a solid OC. He's not really doing great. I think people thought they would see more out of him. And I also think they want somebody young. They're in this weird transition stage where nobody really from that Super Bowl team is there so much anymore. They've got to kind of figure out what they want to do. You got to figure out what you have in Carson Wentz. And I think the best person to figure out what you have in this guy you signed forever, what does he have, 4 years left? You gotta figure out what you have, and I think the best person to do that is Joe Brady. And I think he's a hot name, and I think he's going to get a job much sooner than you think he is, because I don't really know that he did what he could.
Matan, I'm going to add on to this. I actually really strongly agree with the Philadelphia Eagles getting Joe Brady, because Josh McDaniels, I think, is the only other option, and I don't think he's leaving the Patriots. I think they're not going to go with Eric Bieniemy. That's another coach that they've tried to hire. That's another Andy Reid coaching tree, and I think they want to move away from Doug Peterson, and then it's Todd Bowles. That's what's left. I think Joe Brady's the most talented in there. I really love what he did at LSU. I think taking Joe Burrow, who wasn't excelling that much the year before, still had a lot of the same talent at LSU, and really brought him to be that number 1 overall pick. I agree. I love Joe Brady to the Philadelphia Eagles.
And I also think when you think about the Eagles, I don't know that that's a job a lot of people are going to want, especially Josh McDaniels. They won a Super Bowl with Doug Peterson, 4 years ago? And the Eagles hadn't won before that, and they're so quick to throw them out. I mean, if I'm a head coach, if I'm a person that's being sought after, that's not a job I'm dying to get.
Philly's a tough town. Matan, let's get to those mortal locks.
Okay. So I've got 2 today. Obviously, we went 1-1 last week. I'm happy. I had another play that I liked the most, but I wasn't sure if I was going to include it because it was a little more complicated last week. It hit, so I'm not going to do that again. I will include it this week. So I'm going to ride with the guys who, they're taking me in the sunset. I got Green Bay -3.5, and I've got a 6-point teaser. So that means we're getting 6 points on top of what the line is. So it's going to end up being Green Bay +2.5, Bills +9. Again, I'm kind of relying there on Mahomes not playing. I think he will play, and I think if he does play, he's not playing at 100%. It's kind of hard to see Tyreek Hill running that fast when you see 2 of Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, I think the Bills are going to be able to cover 9 at the very least, even if he does play.
Well, even if maybe the Bills will cover perhaps a Packers-Bills Super Bowl. We will see. Matan, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Good to see you guys.
I want to add on about the Patrick Mahomes injury.
Yeah.
There are plenty of reports today that the Chiefs will not admit that Patrick Mahomes has a concussion. They are not saying that still.
Well, two things. My reaction, coming into the week, I kind of wish the Ravens won also because Lamar Jackson had a concussion. And so then it's like this game of chicken. It's like, are you going to play your concussed quarterback? Like, if you play your concussed quarterback, then we're going to play our – if you don't play your concussed quarterback, then – so that's the kind of thing. The second thing is, of course, with concussions, you can confirm things in MRIs and doing brain scans. But if you don't take those measures, it's like, well, does he have a concussion? What did it say in the brain scan? Well, we don't know because he didn't have one. It's like, what do you mean he didn't have one? It's like, well, if he doesn't have a brain scan, then he hasn't been diagnosed with a concussion, So they get into all those loopholes. For more on this and possibly more throughout NFC and AFC divisional weekend, we bring in Adam on the fan line. Adam is a high school football coach, has to get concussion certified every year. So I would like to hear his take on how fast someone like Patrick Mahomes could come back and play. And more, coming off of a great week co-hosting, went 3 for 4 in picks. Hopefully we can get him on the line. However, I'm a professional. I can keep stalling.
We have Matan came in with a very funny comment saying, don't you hate it when you get the wind knocked out of your brain?
Yeah, short answer is yes. I think short answer is yes. Still getting a lot of flack in the comments for my Desean Watson take. Not as much a take, just an analysis. Adam, thanks so much for coming on the fan line. I don't know if you heard my introduction and the insight, hope that you can provide.
I did. Sorry, this is just a little bit of an adjustment. I'm not used to being on this side of the show. I've just gotten accustomed to being a host. This is a little bit of an adjustment, but
sorry, it's a little awkward. Yeah, my bad.
So yeah, let's talk concussion. So basically, the standard concussion protocol that is pretty much adopted at every level, at every different league all across the country, is there's a 5-day steps to get back to playing, and each step takes 1 day. So he could potentially have had a concussion on Saturday and be able to be ready to go by Thursday or Friday. The first day is sort of you have to just go throughout your day without having any symptoms, any headaches, any nausea. A lot of times for people who have concussion, when they run or when they exercise, the headache starts to come back, so you have to go a full day no symptoms. And then I work with high school athletes, so I look through the lens of a high school person. So the second step is, can you go to class without a headache? Can you go through your day, seeing your friends, eating all 3 meals, not being in a room that's just, dark all day without symptoms? And then after that, can you jog, without any symptoms? And then after, the fourth step is, can you practice without contact? Can you put your pads on without any symptoms? And then the fifth one, can you go through a full live practice? And you can do all that without any symptoms. Then you're free to play. And if you have any symptoms, any headaches, any fuzzy memories, any, feeling a little woozy, any forgetting anything in any of those days, then you have to start the whole process over again. And I know at the high school and most college levels, they take that process very seriously, as they should. At the pro level, I'm sure some T's don't get crossed, some I's don't get dotted, and I think they're going to do whatever they want.
The $500 million man will find a way to get on the field if they want him to get on the field.
Yes.
There are a lot of Chiefs fans on Twitter apparently criticizing Jim Nantz for saying that Patrick Mahomes got a concussion because he was stumbling around. And they're saying that Jim Nantz should not announce those things because he's, quote, not a doctor. But it very much looked like he did. I would say that.
I think in the old days, they would call it, getting your bell rung, and you can have something like that, and it's not a concussion. But I am not a medical expert. But I did take the 45-minute course, and I would think that would qualify as a concussion. But don't put my name on that.
All right, Adam, what's your take for the week?
Well, first I always start with a question. Yes, a little eager are we? And we've been away from the show for too long to forget how things were.
A little rusty.
Well, we were talking about the Jets for a while, which got my mind kind of going about football teams that did not play very well this year. And of course, I went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They took a big step towards their rebuilding process by hiring Urban Meyer, which I think is I think it's interesting. I think it's a fun hire. I think he'll be good, and he'll sort of stir the pot a little bit. But Jacksonville Jaguars are a very juicy rebuilding story. They have the most cap space of any NFL team. $73 million to spend this offseason. They're not really losing any big pieces. They're losing two of their receivers, Keenan Cole and Chris Conley. They're losing Cam Robinson, their staple at left tackle. So you're Urban Meyer. You come in. You're obviously going to draft Trevor Lawrence. What's your next, or I guess, free agency will happen first, but, what's your next big move? Do you have a player in mind you want to go after? Do you have a position you want to address?
Yeah.
Where do you think they need to go first?
Offensive line. Has to be offensive line. You have a top pick. Even if they chooch it and they draft Justin Fields, or they trade down and they draft Justin Fields, it's going to be a quarterback no matter what. You have to address that position first. It doesn't even matter where. Left tackle, right tackle, get some guards and centers to really solidify the run game. Offensive line has to be a priority for the Jacksonville Jaguars in the offseason.
Yeah, I was just about to say that as well. I mean, you saw what happened with Joe Burrow this year, getting a bad injury after having a pretty good year with a bad offensive line. So you really want to prevent that when you're getting a new bright and shiny quarterback in the building. So, yeah, I'll agree. I think Joe Thuney is thinking he's going to be a free agent this year.
He's going to be a free agent, but he's coming off of another good season with the Patriots. They really like having him around, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think that would be their first go-to if he does shake away.
Yeah, that would be a good building block for sure. The offensive line of Trevor Lawrence start to get that thing going. I had a bold take. Well, first, let me introduce our special guest for the bold taste. It's the same special guest. It's Natural Light. It's next to God for 3,000 years. These are some stressful times of year. We have an inauguration coming up. Some people are celebrating it. Some people are very unhappy. I, myself, am in the former. But anyway, it's a lot of emotions flying around. People aren't always sure how to deal with it. As a certified licensed therapist by the state of Massachusetts, sometimes you just got to take one of these down the gullet. Natural Lights. You go down to your packy, you find a 30-pack or a 24-pack or a 12-pack or a 6-pack or just one. You take it home. You put it in the fridge. You put it in the freezer. Don't put it in the fridge or the freezer. You drink it. Each sip smoother than last. Natural Light, nectar of the gods, over 3,000 years. Now, I had a nice bold prediction, but then I saw Matan, who was just predicting things that already happened. And I could say, hey, I predict Drew Brees is going to retire after the game on Sunday. But, I'm above that. I'm a little classier. So here's my prediction. I see 4 teams this weekend that have very good quarterbacks, very clutch quarterbacks. And I predict both games are going to be very close. It's going to come down to a last drive for one of the quarterbacks to lead a team down for a field goal or touchdown. And both games this Sunday, you heard it here first. Natural Light, you heard it here first. Both games are going into overtime. It happened once in the 2018-2019 season with Patriots, Chiefs, and Saints, Rams went into overtime. And it's going to happen again this Sunday. They're both going into overtime. Patrick Mahomes will not remember any of it. Unfortunately, it'll be in the NFL Films archives. Both games going to overtime.
Wow. Yeah, so you think that's going to be that close. See, we haven't gotten to our predictions yet, but I can give a little sneak peek. I think the Packers are really a much better team than the Buccaneers. I don't think that game is going to be that close. But I could be wrong. I was wrong last week about Tom Brady, and it seems
As
like
was I, yeah.
I always am. So we'll see. I like the take, though.
We'll see. Adam, before we let you go, I was just perusing the comments. We had Andrew Miller comment. I know he's a longtime Patriots fan. He had commented, so happy to see Brady on his way again. As a diehard Patriots fan yourself, do you feel that sentiment that it's nice to see Tom Brady succeeding and back in the big game, or can you not just stand it? Where are you on that fence?
Definitely not strong on either side, but gravitating pretty closely towards can't stand it. I just think it hurts his reputation as the greatest New England Patriot of all time. And I'm a Patriots fan first and a Tom Brady fan second. And I wouldn't say I'm actively rooting against him, but it just creates a better narrative if he left New England and then did not do very well with his other team. But that team is loaded. It's not even fair. There's the Belichick Brady argument, people saying, oh, it was Brady, but that team is so stacked. Freaking Scotty Miller is the 4th receiver and would be the number 1 receiver on half the teams. And Cameron Brate would be the best tight end on almost any team. And that's a whole other argument. I want to give other people a chance as much as I do love hearing myself talk. But yeah, I'd say I'm rooting against Tom Brady this Sunday.
All right. How do I feel? Yeah, I mean, I think I like to see people doubting him and then to see him come out on top. I also like seeing Gronk play. I don't feel confident about their game against Green Bay, but that's what Tom Brady does. People say I don't feel confident about it. People are counting him out, and then out
Yeah, snaps
and
for
get
that.
the win.
Snap.
Adam, thanks so much for coming on the fan line. Scotty Miller, Bowling Green State University alum. Don't forget it. Shout out Bowling Green State. Shout out Tate Sigworth's dad.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Would you look at that? Yeah, no, I think the only thing that I think about when I think about Tom Brady and the Buccaneers is the farther he goes, does this make it more of a mistake for the Patriots to let him go? I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
I mean, it goes back to what Adam just said. It's like, is it more of a mistake? I think it's not a mistake that they let him go, but it's more of a mistake that, like, the last few years he was there, even though in 2018 they won the Super Bowl, the last few years they were there, they couldn't keep putting weapons around him. Like, I think this makes the Patriots look like, shit, maybe it was a bad idea to go into the season with Demir Bird, Jacoby Myers, and Julian Edelman being our 3 receivers. Like, maybe it was a bad idea to draft 2 tight ends in the 3rd round and then try to have them both start. I mean, that's what I would be kind of kicking yourself over as a Patriots fan. Speaking of kicking yourself, we got Daniel coming up next on the fan line. His Saints are going home early again this year. I feel for you. They were my Super Bowl pick preseason show. They're not doing very well in the cap. Drew Brees might not be the quarterback anymore, but Jameis Winston is gunning it and slinging it and throwing touchdowns. So the Saints might be okay. And you always got Taysom Hill. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah. Props to Chicago playbook. We stole that play from them, literally from the Wildcard game. So thank you for that.
Yeah, good
and we actually caught it. We didn't let it drop through our arms. But yeah, I'm a mix of emotions. Like, I'm sad that we lost. I'm sad that Drew Brees is likely retiring. But I'm like hopeful for the future in that we stick with Jameis or Taysom or get Deshaun Watson, but we're not going to get Deshaun Watson because our cap is trash. But yeah, to the people that say, like, people are going to complain Drew Brees has 1 ring. Oh, he's not that good. The dude has like every QB record ever. And the ones he doesn't have, he's
I know a lot of people that are saying he's not that good. I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but the consensus is pretty good at football. I don't know.
No, sorry, I should have been like, to the idiots that say he's not going to be a Hall of Famer because he doesn't have rings.
Sure.
Right. Or people are saying that he's not in like the categories of like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady,
right.
like that. Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
Also 1 ring. Yeah.
Just because he can't perform in the playoffs doesn't mean he's not good.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And Dan, I feel you. Saints are my 2nd favorite team. It's been sad for me. Everything that I root for dies, so I need to stop doing that for your sake. I'm really worried about the Saints next year, whether it is Jameis or Taysom Hill. Honestly, I can't see this team being very good next year when they're going to have to cut $94 million worth of players.
Yeah.
Then again, $25 million of that could be Drew Brees, but still, Jesus Christ, why can't they just win in the divisional round?
Here's what I'll say with the Saints. It's not all bad. And I'll turn this in my favorite way, which is turning to talk about me and my favorite team, the New England Patriots. A lot of people come to the show, they talk about the Patriots like they're going to draft a quarterback or they're going to bring in a quarterback, and they're right back in the playoffs. They just need a quarterback to solve their problems. In the words of Lee Corso, not so fast. The Patriots have a lot more issues than quarterback issues. If they bring in a great quarterback, young buck or old buck, they're still going to have issues. They still might not make the playoffs. The Saints, on the other hand, if they just find a serviceable quarterback, they will be back in the playoffs. If they keep this roster, give or take, they keep this roster together and put in Jameis Winston, they could still win the division next year. With Alvin Kamara under contract for a long time. Emmanuel Sanders was a great signing. You know, you got some pieces there on the defensive end. Cameron Jordan's under contract for a while. The Saints really do just need to address quarterback, and then, like, they'll be okay, as opposed to, say, the Patriots. And that's where, yeah, cap issues, whatnot. But if the Saints figure out this conundrum at quarterback, even if the answer is Jameis Winston, they're going to be okay.
I don't think so.
Really?
But I hope so. I really do hope so. I just think when you're that far under the cap, you're losing your star quarterback for 20 years, the instability is going to hit. Sean Payton, though, is amazing. I'm worried about the Saints next year.
Yeah. Since I've been a fan, we've never been in this, like, rebuild mode. Like, Drew Brees has been solid all the entire career. So the fact that he's not going to be there makes me a little worried. But, yeah, I think we're still going to finish above 500. Now, does that get us into the playoffs? who knows? I think Brady's going to stick around next year, so we'll see if Tampa Bay can finish in the top of the division. Yeah, but I too am rooting against Brady. I want to see Aaron Rodgers just destroy him, not because, like, obviously I want to see the Bucs lose because they beat the Saints, but also I can't stand to see Tom Brady in another Super Bowl. Like, put him on the Patriots, put him on the Bucs, put him anywhere. I don't want to see him in the Super Bowl.
Sure, I feel.
But yeah,
we have Nav saying in all caps, the cap is a myth. So I'm curious what he means by that, but sure, yeah.
I mean, if the Saints got this far and we're like $100 million over the cap, like how much farther over the cap can we get?
Let's get to 150. That's what I'm saying.
It's not like in baseball per se, where there's no cap, and like big market teams who have bigger, who have a little more revenue from other places can like, okay, like we'll pay the luxury tax or whatever. Like teams do that. But I think the NFL, I know what Nav is saying, and he should come on the fan line and talk to us about all the stuff he reads on Reddit. But I think as far as the four major sports go, the NFL is pretty strict around the cap compared to other sports. Dan, before we let you go, I have another New Orleans Saints question. A lot of people, in and around the media are talking about, the Saints they really didn't have all their full weapons. They didn't have Taysom Hill, Latavius Murray going into the game. I call BS on that whole thing. I don't think either of those guys would make that big of a difference. Just like, Taysom Hill plays 25% of all snaps in the game. I think the way Drew Brees played. Drew Brees is really the one that brought them down. Inability to throw the deep ball, and they stopped giving it to Alvin Kamara. That's kind of what killed him. It's not missing Murray and Hill.
Yeah, I agree. Like it was a great game up until the fourth quarter. Tampa Bay's defense played a hell of a game. Devin White, Sean Murphy Bunting had they were just off the walls. But yeah, Drew Brees not throwing deep, and Alvin Kamara getting stuffed just added on to that.
Daniel, I will let you know that you also had as many receptions as Michael Thomas this Sunday. How did it feel?
Yeah, I feel amazing. I'm a star wide receiver.
Dan, thanks so much for coming on the fan line. We appreciate it. We got a comment here from Nadav Calendar, brother of fan favorite Aryeh Calendar. How can the Washington football team turn themselves into contenders, and how long will it take? See, this is an interesting question because they are contenders. That division is dog shit. So they're already contenders. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. I think the Giants are coming back next year with Saquon. They built a really strong foundation. I know I might be appealing to a lot of our fan base here saying that the Giants could come back, but I really think they're going to take the division. Or the Cowboys if they can keep Dak Prescott. But I think the Washington football team goes right down to zero next year.
Somebody heard you. We got Aryeh coming next on the fan line. Heineke was balls to the wall in the NFC wildcard game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My opinion is that NFC East is still up for grabs, but that and more on wildcard weekend. On divisional weekend. Aryeh, thanks so much for coming.
Good to be here. Paul, we're going to fight now.
All right, let's go. Hit me, Aryeh.
Oh, okay. No, number one, it's important to note that I have not even one fact to dispute you with. Number two, equally crucial, Taylor Heineke is shocking. And that was one of the most wild things I've ever seen in my entire life. People were there were people being like, "Oh, I'm sorry the football team lost." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" All this shit up 100 times. I would say that's in the top 5% of outcomes right there, right? We win 2 of them, we lose 3 of them fun, and the rest of them are absolute crap shows. And I was thrilled. It was fun to see. I loved a lot of the Chase Young Brady banter going up to it. It was appropriate and lighthearted, and Chase Young got stomped, and that was fun to see. Getting to watch Tampa Bay shift its line over to totally take him out of the game, I think is going to be good for him in the long term. I will say, look, it got talked about for the Patriots for years, but I think it just comes and rears its head again. Having Gronkowski on the field as an effective 6th lineman is just such an edge that any team with him has. It was fun. They went toe to toe with the GOAT. It was a great time. I'm so excited. Everyone I've wanted to win in the playoffs other than Washington has won up to this point, so we're rolling.
Coming off of that, my question really, this is something that a lot of people have already locked in for their NFL Honors Awards happening, of course, the night before the Super Bowl. Just confirm for me, Ron Rivera is a lock for Coach of the Year, right?
Ron Rivera is probably a lock for Coach of the Year in the sense that that is the way we judge Coach of the Year, which is by far and away the most inconsistent and poorly awarded award. Joan actually makes a good point. Sean McDermott also probably gets a mention here, but I do think that yes, I think he checks a lot of boxes. Yes, he did some good stuff. I am actually not as sold on Rivera in totality in the same way that other Washington football team fans are. I have no issues with him. I'm just I wouldn't say the offense did a lot of interesting things. I wouldn't say there was look, obviously there are skill issues. And so I'm more in a wait and see and not the, okay, we found the next one for forever. I just want to see it again. Clearly he can motivate the players, but I do think it's not just in the NFL, but across all 4 major sports, no one knows how to award this award. And it's such a mess and a half.
Yep.
But yeah, the dude had to fight cancer this year as well as one of the worst divisions in the NFL. So I think one was an easier battle than the other, which hope. But that being said, I think he will probably get it. That would be my vote.
I agree.
He is a good coach, though. I think you can very much see the Washington football team play hard. What I will say about their future, though, and something I wanted to expand upon, was that I think the Eagles screwed them by letting them get to the playoffs. Yes, was it fun to watch Heineke ball out, but they still need a quarterback, and now they're picking so much later. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, frankly, I don't think it matters as much as everyone else thinks it matters. First, I think in general, right, his last ability of bottoming out to be able to get up higher and pick your quarterback is I think a lot less in the NFL than it is in some other sports in terms of getting your guy. If we were talking about getting into the top 5 versus making the playoffs, I'd be there. I'm not so sure that getting to play in the playoffs for the NFL, when you have so much roster turnover and it's not like you're building your whole core from bottom in there, I think people underestimate that, especially when you look at some of the other sports like baseball, where you have so much control over players for so long, and the NBA, where you have a core that is able to be productive really early in their careers. I think people don't realize that, yes, getting your rookie quarterback is great, but I'm not so sure the jump between whatever it is, 19 and 10 or 22 and 10, whatever it is, while significant. I'm sad we're not picking earlier. I'm not so sure that losing out on playoff football for these young guys that they have right now is necessarily as big of a deal as everyone thinks it is. And what are we going to do? Botch a quarterback at 10 instead of 22? Okay. What's the real opportunity cost here?
Yeah.
Well, so then, as Jonah, I don't know if you were going to jump into this, Yoni, but Jonah just asked Arya then, who do you want as the QB for Washington next year?
So, frankly, the honest answer is I actually don't care. I do not think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think they're a year away. I'm not so sure they're 2 years away either. I know there's a lot of people who want to be, and things change really fast in the NFL. And if we hit on a couple of the later round picks that fill out your team, then maybe this conversation gets a lot different. But it's not Alex Smith. Bless his heart, it's not Taylor Heineke, who everyone likes to pretend is 23 and not 27. It's certainly not Dwayne Haskins. And frankly, not only is it not whoever we're gonna pick at 22 unless we get lucky, but it wasn't really gonna be whoever we picked at 10 unless we get lucky either. Barring the fact that there's some talk now about some of these quarterbacks dropping, so I might feel silly about this in a little bit with all the Zach Wilson hype and the Justin Fields slide talk, which I think is overblown, and some of these other guys who are forcing their way in. Maybe Trey Lance puts himself back in the picture at the combine, whatever. Maybe I'll feel silly. Maybe it'll end up being that 17 ended up being the baseline of where you needed to be. But as of now, I'm not so sure that anyone they can get in the draft is necessarily so convincingly the answer. And frankly, I'd be okay. And I know I'm a minority of this in the fandom, but frankly, I'd be okay with riding with someone like Heineke again and figuring stuff out and either making an aggressive moves to pursue a veteran quarterback, which I'm fine with doing this offseason as well, or being ready to truly bottom out. Because frankly, I think if we play this division again, we'll probably not finish towards the top, and we'll get that top 6-7 pick that we need.
Yeah. A couple of things. One, as you said, Trey Lance could shoot up depending on how he does the combine. The NFL announced today that they're probably going to cancel the combine and just have pro days. The second thing, we're going to go in an entirely different direction. You didn't ask to be the fan cred expert on the Rooney Rule, but you're going to be, because last year at the time you came on and gave some pretty empowering words about what you thought what are going forward on head coaches and general managers of minority or of color. And again, as another head coaching cycle is tuning up again, there's a lot of talk that head coaching minorities, it's just not there. Not a lot of minorities are getting interviewed. Not a lot of minorities are getting a job. Before we let you go, I know this changes gears a lot, but just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So the beginning of this offseason has been encouraging. Obviously, the structures here are both like systemic. Like, this isn't, people can whine all they want about not any good options right now, but like, we all know where that starts. It starts in the college ranks. It starts in the high school ranks. It starts giving more opportunities to former players and other folks who are getting in there. And I think that's like the first thing that I just want to put out there as important. If you don't have good options, that's as much an indicative of a problem as not hiring the options themselves. I would like to say, though, so far we've seen Robert Saleh going to the Jets, which is actually incredible, because not only are we talking about, I believe, the first Muslim head coach in the NFL, and someone who is a minority in a lot of those ways, but I also think what's important is he's not a former player and was someone who needed to be able to go through, quote unquote, the system without having the same types of structures that often benefit like the traditional white male that gets in there. So I think that's really huge. I love the GM hiring for the Lions of, shoot, I'm blanking on his name. Help me.
Lions had Brad Holmes.
Yeah, Brad Holmes, who had like an adorable quote where he like called his mother this day they signed him and was crying on the phone and was like, "I really think I can make a difference, Mom." And then on Twitter, all the Lions fans were like, "Oh, you poor sweet child." But I think like that was a really big move, and seeing more Black GMs and folks in the front office is going to be big as well. I think there's a lot of good things happening. At the end of the day, the NFL is not addressing their actual issues with the Rooney Rule, while the Rooney Rule continues to be relevant and necessary. And that's the fact that they need to deal with the interview process. They need to deal with expanding the ideas of what it means to coach football and like what type of person can be successful. And they need to start giving those opportunities to coordinators, and understanding that there was an article not too long ago, I recall, that was like, an enormous percentage of Black coaches on staffs, especially when there's only a few Black coaches, are linebacker coaches or safety coaches. And it's about pigeonholing folks into the proverbial right field that people need to step up and like give some opportunities to folks who don't necessarily think the way they do and don't get scared off of that. And I think all of those things are a problem. I'm hopeful, based on this offseason, that it's been relatively positive so far, and I'm hoping it'll continue to be good moving forward.
Yeah, no, it's all. I really like your takes on that, Aria, and I think you have some really good insight into that. There's another thing that talking about that Eric Bieniemy keeps getting interviews, but keeps not getting hired, and I think that's unbelievable, considering he's been in one of the best offenses in the beginning of this decade. So I think that's unbelievable that's
agreed wholeheartedly. It's bizarre at this point, and at some point, right, it's clearly something is going on again in the interview process, and that's the part that I least trust to be able to avoid of bias. Also, to briefly address Matan's question, yes, I can tell you who to vote for in the Virginia State Senate races, but you need to let me know which Senate races. The main thing is, do not vote for Amanda Chase. Everything else, do your thing. She's running for governor too. Be afraid.
All right, thanks so much for coming to the fan line. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Yoni. Thanks, Paul.
Gotta love Ari always has the very in-depth takes. I really love how he always can do that. That's great to have him on the line.
My quick thing about Eric Bieniemy, I'll just say, and I don't want to be like taking the other side of the Rooney Rule. I don't want that to be seen as
we are a show with takes.
However, if Eric Bieniemy stays in Kansas City, foregoing a head coaching job to be the offensive coordinator of a team that will probably be in the AFC Championship for the next 8 years is not a bad gig to stay in, right? It's the same reason Josh McDaniels stays in New England. So if Eric Bieniemy doesn't take a head coaching job, he's like, I guess I'll just stay in Kansas City and win 3 more Super Bowls. Like, that's not like they're not hiring Black head coaches. Maybe that's Eric Bieniemy. It's like, I'm going to make a business decision and just get a lot more rings and get paid more and just push off head coaching for a while, which is also okay if that's what he decides he wants to do.
Yeah, and comparing to Josh McDaniels, Jonah is also agreeing that he can take over for Reed when he retires in 10 years after 9 Super Bowls. So Speaking of Jonah, he's been waiting patiently in the comments. He is coming on the fan line. Jonah, what's happening?
Thanks so much to everyone patiently waiting. Keep getting on that fan line. Keep pushing that button. We're a fan-centered show. We want to get to you with Conference Championship Weekend coming up. We got Jonah coming on the fan line. Jonah, been active in the comments. We know you got a lot to say. We're happy you're here.
Yeah, first off, I want to say Bo Callahan's going to go number 1.
Okay, great movie. Great movie. Next.
Okay, I don't know if you saw it, but in the last right before the show started, I mean, it's going to be official tomorrow, but Ravens are going to move on from Mark Ingram. They're going to cut him.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to give a prediction, actually, of a team that I think he actually might be a good fit for.
Okay.
Considering this team's running back tore his ACL, and I assume he'll eventually get back. And this team really struggled with the whole running back situation this year. I think he'd be a good fit on the Giants.
Yeah, I think
as a backup. I know he's not what he once was, but I think he could fit.
A couple things. I don't know if he's going to go for the backup idea. They're definitely going to move on from him. If you're getting paid that much, you're that highly touted running back, and you're a healthy scratch in playoff games, you're definitely going to move on. I think he'd fit well in New York. Wayne Gallman kind of did the job for the Giants, and he was on a couple of my fantasy teams, did really well. I openly endorsed him on the show multiple times. Wayne Gallman was like a good 20 carries, 90 yards, 1 touchdown a game type of guy. And that's the only slight issue I have with your take. That would be a very crowded running back room with Saquon, Mark Ingram, and a pretty capable Wayne Gallman. But if you can get him for cheap, I mean, the more talent, the better. The Patriots have been doing it for years. But I think from a scheme perspective, I think the take fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he belongs more in a situation where he can be mentoring maybe a young running back as well as splitting time, just because, he has. I think he fits more in that situation rather than the Saquon role.
Yeah, I mean, I actually just thought of another team. I mean, I don't really know much about their running back situation. I was thinking Miami as another possibility.
That's a much better. I think that's a much better take.
Yeah, I think Myles Gaskin and Selvin. I think
the guys that filled in and did okay. They cut Jordan Howard at the beginning of the year, which was pretty surprising. And that team has been lacking a really good running back ever since Kenyon Drake left. I think Miami is an interesting take, but they're not going to pay Mark Ingram a lot. I think that's going to be the issue, is Mark Ingram's going to say he can still be the guy, He wants to get paid, $7-8 million a year. It's not going to happen. So one of the sides is going to have to bunch.
All right, and I got one more thing. This is actually regarding the Philadelphia coaching. I was reading from a reporter on Twitter from some Philadelphia sports who basically said McDaniels was meeting with the Eagles for 9 hours yesterday. So my question is, if he does end up taking the job, who would you want as your next offensive coordinator? I was seeing a lot of Chad O'Shea or even Adam Gase. So
I saw some Adam Gase. I was not going to hire. Patriots are an in-house hire organization, kind of like that. And I think more so on that point is the last couple of years where the Patriots have had some outside hires. They left after a year, or in the case of who was it? He's now back at Rutgers. Greg Schiano. In the case of Greg Schiano, he was there for 2 weeks, and then he was the Lord said, this isn't the opportunity for me right now, and then he left. So the Patriots in the very recent history have just had some really bad luck with outside hires. They got the guy who's now the head coach at the University of Illinois, was there for a year. So I think it's an in-house hire. I think Chad O'Shea is a pretty good pick.
Yeah,
Adam Gase can get within 100 yards of the Patriots facility. But I think if they are going to have to replace an offensive coordinator, I think they might go the head coach, fired head coach route. Maybe get a Dan Quinn, Dan Quinn, maybe a Bill O'Brien. I don't know. I think they might go
Alabama.
Yeah, and Dan Quinn to the Cowboys now. Dan Quinn went to Dallas.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So then, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think McDaniels is leaving. I think we've been playing the song and dance for way too long.
All right. Well, that's all I have. Thanks for having me on.
Dylan, appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Matan in the comments is making fun of me saying mentoring a young running back. Running backs don't need to be mentored. I say J.K. Dobbins disagrees. He looks great.
I mean, it's not the same as like an old quarterback and a young quarterback, but there's definitely some like stuff getting used to, whether it's, teaching the playbook and stuff like that. We're still looking for fans to come on the fan line. Anyone can come on. One question, one take, in and out. We're reading your comments, but until then, let's get to some takes. Conference weekend. Just Paul, we'll go first. Just give me your Super Bowl pick, and that'll kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, so the two teams that I think are going to be in the Super Bowl is going to be the Packers and Chiefs, which sounds pretty lame at this point, both the number one seeds. But I think Patrick Mahomes is going to play in this game. I think that team can win with two hands tied behind their back. I mean, they just look unbelievable throughout the entire season, even in their bad games. Even Chad Henne had some awesome plays. I really think they could still pull this out. And the Packers are running. Aaron Rodgers playing the best football he has played in years. Some people are attributing that to the Jordan Love, kind of like heating up his seat type of thing, and Aaron Rodgers getting pissed off. I really think he also wants to take it to Tom Brady, who many people he has lost to over the years, and he really wants to say like, hey, this is my league now. I'm a year or two younger than you. I could take over. Josh Allen, though, I'll go to the other losing team, I think, in the AFC. I think Josh Allen is probably a year away from me. I think he has shown a lot of maturity this year, being able to get where he is, but I think they're a year away from really making that push.
Yeah, I mean, my Super Bowl prediction is the same. And, of course, like everyone else in America, I'm softly picking the Chiefs. If Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, then, of course, I have the right to change my pick. I think the more analysis for me comes on the other side of the NFC with Packers-Buccaneers. The Buccaneers won that game because the Saints uncharacteristically turned the ball over a lot at home. They got decimated in the turnover margin. Drew Brees was throwing some really bad interceptions in his part of the field, which set up some easy Buccaneer scores. Buccaneers had 21 points off of turnovers this weekend. 21 points off of turnovers.
Is that bad?
That's pretty bad, and I don't see that happening against Green Bay. Also, as opposed to New Orleans, if Green Bay gets behind by a little early, they're not going to abandon the run. I know Aaron Rodgers is playing well and everything, but if Green Bay is behind by 7 or 3 or 10 at halftime, Aaron Jones is still going to get the ball. Jamal Williams is still going to get the ball. They're still going to work A.J. Dillon in the mix. Like they're not going to panic like the Saints did and stop giving the ball to Alvin Kamara. I think that's what's different. And that's really what's surprising me because that's coaching. And that's like I just see Matt LaFleur doing a better job of not abandoning that run game better so than Sean Payton, which, again, surprising and it's tough. You don't have Latavius Murray. You don't have Taysom Hill. I get it. But for those reasons, I picked the Packers. And, of course, you have a North Florida team going to play in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Tom Brady's used to the cold. I don't know about the other 52 guys on the roster. I got Packers, Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think the game's going to overtime, though.
I got two comments off of that. So the first is that there was one point in the game, the last interception that Drew Brees thrown. They said that was the worst field position they were given off a turnover. They had 4 turnovers in that game, and they were starting on their 47-yard line. So there was plenty of times where Tom Brady had a very short field to play on. They will not have that against the Packers again. Also, in an interview, this is the second point, in an interview with Tom Brady has, quote, said, "I am not as used to the cold as I used to be living in Tampa Bay." I think that's pretty funny to think about considering he was with the Patriots for 20 years. I still think it hurts. I think the older you get, the more your bones are going to ache. I think it's going to really hurt for him now.
He'll figure it out. He'll step off that plane. He'll feel the minus 10-degree wind chill hit his face, and he'll be right back in it. Before we go, even more weighted than the Super Bowl prediction. Paul, did we see Drew Brees' last game in the NFL?
Honestly, I do think so. And this goes back to what we were talking about with Dan earlier. I think the Saints are going to go into rebuild mode after this year. I think Drew Brees is going to announce his retirement shortly after the Super Bowl, after his time to watch it on the couch with his kids. I really think that this is the end for him just because he sees the end of the road for the Saints. I think that's like kind of similar with Tom Brady. He said, like, I see this as the end with the Patriots. Let me move on. I still want to play. Drew Brees is going to say, I think this is the end of the Saints. I'm going to move on and stop playing football. Plus, Doesn't he have an offer with CBS?
Yeah, he has like a stupidly huge offer with CBS. And yeah, I agree. I think with the Saints having one of the more competent backups next in line in the NFL in Jameis Winston, the cap troubles are there. I don't know how much they're going to build. And the other thing I don't think people are talking about a lot is I think Drew Brees is a little afraid of Tom Brady, right? If Tom Brady wasn't there in Tampa Bay and Drew Brees was like, all right, I could come back and we'll definitely win the division again and we'll like make another run at this thing. But like if Drew Brees comes back next year, it's going to be like, oh, Tom Brady's in this division again. We might not even win the division. Like we may not even get a home playoff game. Is that really worth it to me to come back? I think that plays into his mind a little bit. Like how easy is the road to get back to that possible second championship? And it's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, and if that's the end of the road for Drew Brees, he's had an incredible career. Coming off that shoulder injury, they said he was never going to play again, traded from the Chargers. Probably, or I think it was a free agent signing actually by the Saints, probably one of the better free agent signings in history. Hurricane Katrina. I mean, dude has been through it all. Pass interference calls that didn't go his way, which I am still livid about. Whatever.
Interception in overtime. Shit happens. Matan wants us to give the Walter Payton Man of the Year predictions. Of course, the award the NFL gives out to outstanding community service. I don't know. I'll be a homer and pick Devin McCourty. He's been nominated by the New England Patriots like each of the last 4 years. Does a lot of great work with his brother Jason for Tackle Sickle Cell. Also, check it out. Devin and Jason McCourty have a show on FanCred. Double coverage with the McCourtys, a very popular show. They'll be back after the season's over. Paul, do you have a pick for Walter Payton Man of the Year?
Well, so I just Googled it very quickly because honestly I had no goddamn clue. However, the internet is saying that Travis Kelce won the fans' vote at this point, which I think has 33% weight in their decision.
It's not even about like who has the best community service. It's just about like the best, it's like, oh, like they're just going to give it to JJ Watt again. I don't know.
Right.
I'm sure he does great work, but you know what I'm saying. Popularity contest.
Yeah. So, Jonah saying in the comments, Breeze and Tirico taking over for Collinsworth and Michaels.
Al Michaels. I like Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth so much more than that potential duo. Drew Brees definitely better than Tony Dungy, though. I'll give you that. With that, if not anything else, thanks so much for coming on and watching. For those that came to the fan line, we appreciate it. We'll be back next week for our pre-Super Bowl prediction show.
Which is unbelievable. Yoni, are we doing another Super Bowl show this year?
Yeah, I think we'll be doing another Super Bowl show. I will have to, see what our contract looks like. That might be off FanCred. We usually do a Facebook Live and we do a prediction show. That might become a Zoom show this year. That means we can have more people. So if you've been a super fan, then you might be invited to said show. And there's still time left to get in on that.
Well, can't wait for that. It's been a great year. Looking forward for it to come to an end. Not looking forward for it to coming to an end, but looking forward for the Super Bowl. Really great games coming up, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.